We are following several breaking updates in the search for Emmanuel Haro. This is a picture per KABC TV of the missing 7-month-old's dad in an orange jumpsuit with detectives searching for his son. Jake Haro and the boy's mom, Rebecca, were arrested on Friday. Both are now accused of murder in the death of their son, Emmanuel Haro, but his body has still not been found. And another twist that we're following, even though we saw Jake Haro, the dad, out with detectives, his wife, the boy's mom, is still reportedly sticking to her story that the child was kidnapped in an interview she just did from jail. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. All right, we have a lot to get to in the search for Emmanuel Haro. At the time of this recording, Emmanuel is still missing. His body has not been found. Now, sadly, this is a case where deputies are not expecting to find Emmanuel alive because both of his parents have been charged with murder. They believe that this child was killed. Here are newly released mugshots for Jake and Rebecca Haro. Both have been in jail since Friday morning in Riverside County, California. They were arrested by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office. This is video that Sheriff's Office put online on Friday, showing both of them being walked out of their home. This was in the morning. It appears they were still in PJs and boxers as they were being led to cruisers to be taken into custody. All of this taking place outside Los Angeles. Now, it's unclear what the evidence really is that detectives have that pushed them to make an arrest and to believe that Emmanuel was murdered. Now, there was hope overnight that Emmanuel's body would be found. Here is an image from KABC TV of Jake Haro standing with detectives in an area off a highway about 22 miles from his house. This happened last night. Now, deputies said as Jake was there, they searched the area with cadaver dogs, but they did not find Emmanuel's remains. Now, as for Jake's wife, Rebecca, you probably saw her initial interview on KABC, her alleged cry for help, saying that her son had been abducted and she was attacked. Here's her story.
Got him out of the car seat and I laid him down and so I could get his diapers ready. And somebody said, "Hola," and that's all I remember.
Now that is an alleged lie, according to deputies in Southern California. Rebecca is also, though, now talking from jail. She just gave an interview. It was posted actually around the same time that Jake was out with detectives. And before I get into what she is now saying, let me remind you how she and her husband went public with their alleged crocodile tears more than a week ago. Let's play that soundbite by Rebecca again.
Got him out of the car seat and I laid him down and so I could get his diapers ready. And somebody said, "Hola," and that's all I remember.
So there's Rebecca, like hyperventilating on KABC. That was on August 14th. I will note, the television station says they didn't see any tears in her eyes as she gave that emotional soundbite. She claims that she and Emmanuel went to a sporting goods store in Yucaipa, California Thursday night after they were at a football game for the Haro's other son. Before going into the store, Rebecca claimed that Emmanuel needed a diaper change, so she went to change him, and that's when she heard someone say, "Hola." The next thing she knows, she says she was on the ground and Emmanuel was gone. Now, she had the black eye to prove it, right? That she was attacked. Well, that story seems to really be falling apart. We've been told that that bruise looks like it had been healing for a good amount of time. And it's come to light that she actually reportedly had that black eye nearly 2 weeks before her call to law enforcement and her story of this alleged abduction. Here's what Jake Haro said to cameras from KABC as well.
"Whoever took our son, please give him back."
Hey, before we get back to this episode of On the Case, one of the most watched shows on all of YouTube, I need to take a moment to talk about our partner and sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. This is America's largest injury law firm. They've recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. In the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million, which was 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. Even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to start a claim. You can do it with just 8 easy clicks on your phone. So if you've been injured and you need to start a claim, go to www law&crime.forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also scan this QR code on your screen or click the link below. At first, you had people in this community rallying around this family. I mean, if this was a true story, this would be terrifying, that this boy would be abducted in the parking lot of a sporting goods store and his mom assaulted. But law enforcement, in the hours after, the days after that story was first told, they say they found inconsistencies in what Rebecca was saying, and they confronted her about it. And that is when they say she stopped cooperating with the investigation. In the days after that, law enforcement served multiple search warrants at the Haro's home in a rural part of Southern California. You're looking at drone video here by missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher, who has come on this show multiple times with us as he has been following this case from Southern California. You can see members of law enforcement in this drone video taking bags of evidence from around the property. Now, this couple in TV interviews, they appeared to be a unified front, sitting next to each other, calling for more to be done, in hoping that their son could be found. But then last night, a very interesting development, because on the same day that you had Jake out searching with law enforcement, or at least standing there as they searched, again, they didn't find Emmanuel's body, as they were searching in an area with Jake Haro, Rebecca yesterday did an interview with a reporter from the Southern California news group. And she, according to this interview, is not giving up her story. She said, quote, "I will not give up. I will not give up on my baby." She maintained that she is telling the truth, that she was assaulted and Emmanuel was kidnapped. The reporter did note that the black eye, it's still noticeable, but it has significantly faded under Rebecca's face. She also, it doesn't appear to have any other wounds. If she was to fall on the ground after getting punched, it seems that that small little black eye was the only injury that she had after this alleged assault. Now, it's unclear if Rebecca has had any communication with her husband since her arrest. It's also unclear if she has a lawyer or any sort of representation. She is due in court tomorrow, as well as Jake. We do know that Jake has an attorney. His lawyer's name is Vincent Hughes. He went on News Nation and said his client is innocent, asked why more wasn't being done by law enforcement to search for a boy that his client said was kidnapped and missing. He said his client was cooperating with law enforcement. Here's more of what he said.
Why have Rebecca and Jake stopped cooperating with the police if they're desperate to find the baby and the police are looking for the baby?
I don't know where the statement that they stopped cooperating came from, Ashley. I spoke to the detectives yesterday, offered for Jake to continue to speak with them, have not been made aware of any requests today to speak with Jake. I don't represent Rebecca. That needs to be very clear, but I have not been asked to produce Jake. I offered to produce Jake. They voluntarily turned over all of their electronic devices, including the passwords. I think that's something that's huge that nobody has been made aware of.
Now, that interview was prior to Jake's arrest. When his client was arrested, we reached out to Hughes' office. We spoke to an assistant who said that he would get back to us, and we have not heard back at the time of this recording. There are several major questions that remain unanswered right now in this story. The biggest ones, of course, where's Emmanuel? What happened to Emmanuel? But it's also unclear the last time anyone saw this boy. True crime blogger Annie Elise told News Nation that it's been at least a month, according to people who she has spoken with. It's also been reported that people didn't see Emmanuel at that football game that his mom claims they were at before she says she was assaulted. It's also been reported that the Haros were in the parking lot of that sporting goods store in Yucaipa weeks ahead of the night that Rebecca says she was attacked, and the couple allegedly asked employees of that sporting goods store where their security cameras were because at the time they were claiming their car had been broken into. Then you just have to wonder what Jake told detectives yesterday to bring him to that field. Was he just toying with them? Or does he truly know where Emmanuel's body is? And is he completely splitting from his wife's story that she was attacked? Now, while we're here talking about Jake, it's also important to talk about his history. In 2018, he was arrested for willful child cruelty. He was convicted of that in 2023, and he's currently on probation. And that has raised a lot of questions for prosecutors and how he was able to get that deal. The Daily Breeze media outlet has an affidavit from that case. It says that Haro's 10-week-old daughter was sent to the hospital with fractured ribs, just 10 weeks old. True crime blogger Abby Blabby spoke to the adoptive mom of that little girl who's now 7 years old. And the woman says the girl's blind, she can't speak, all because of what Jake Haro allegedly did. Haro also was expected in court next month for allegedly violating his probation on that case for having a firearm. Now, he is charged with murder, just like his wife, and both are due in court tomorrow on those charges in Riverside County, California, as the search for little Emmanuel continues. Joining us now once again is missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher, who has been following this case on the ground in Southern California. And Steve, right now you are where we see these images of Jake Haro yesterday with law enforcement. They weren't able to find Emmanuel here. What are you seeing out there right now?
Well, I haven't seen any search parties out here today. If they are, they're not in the immediate area. Right behind me is the area just over that ridge. I've been taking a look by drone. There's not anything going on in the area. It was really kind of a bizarre circumstance yesterday, with what happened.
What do you think? I mean, we can only know, only detectives at this point know what Jake Haro told them in custody that got him the opportunity to go out to this area. And there was this hope that this was, in a very sad case, potential that we could find Emmanuel's remains, and it didn't happen. I guess, what do you make of that? Because, I mean, at this point, Jake Haro is accused of being, he looked right into the camera as if that there was a kidnapping, so he's not someone to trust. But what do you make of the fact that nothing seems to have come of that whatsoever?
It's all right. I mean, it's not a regular thing for an inmate to be taken out of custody like that and be taken to a crime scene location. It's rare circumstances in cases where body's hard to find. I don't think they would bring him out here and really felt confident in the information, whatever information he was giving them, and uh that it's bizarre. And they didn't seem to spend a whole lot of time here either. They wrapped up fairly quick. You would think that if he was like, I know it was this general area, um, they would have left search and rescue out longer, they would have left the canines out longer. Um, we saw detectives searching out in the field for a while. I don't know. Maybe they weren't looking for some other type of evidence. Maybe it had been moved. Maybe there's a cell phone. Maybe there's something else. Although they did have, canines out there. So it's really it's strange. If it seems like they gave up fairly quickly or lost faith in his statements fairly quickly.
Steve, the next question is a pretty morbid question, but that's the direction that this story's taken now that it's a murder investigation. It's unclear when the last time anyone saw Emmanuel Haro. It's been speculated at least a month. I mean, long before this alleged story of a kidnapping that his mom said outside the sporting goods store. I mean, realistically speaking, and this is the morbid part of the question, I mean, what exactly could law enforcement find? How much could law enforcement find when it comes to actually locating the remains of Emmanuel Haro?
Well, it's going to depend if he's above or below ground. So let's say he's above ground, which is what it looked like how they were looking yesterday. This is, we've been in a heat wave here, and this is already a hot part of Southern California. So 100-degree weather, if it's been a month, a small child, a decomp process will happen pretty quick. And then also this type of area, there's predators out here. There's coyotes, mountain lion. There's all types of stuff out here. So, and that we see in search and rescue all the time. Predators will spread remains and whatnot. However, cadaver canines can still pick up that scent, and so they would be able to find something, and from there, kind of piece it together.
That was going to be my next question, just because I think for us on the outside, we probably take for granted how effective a dog can be in a search. I know the dogs were at the Haro's home when they were looking for evidence there. I mean, how long ago could a body have been put somewhere and for a cadaver dog still to pick up on a scent?
Oh, cadaver dogs can pick up 100-year-olds, and they train them on Civil War grave stuff. It's amazing what they can do, but the canine is just doing a task. It's playing a game. It's really the handler has to be just as well trained as well, because if they're not picking up the detections from the canine, it's a little different with cadaver dogs or HRD dogs. Uh, if they don't just trail right to a location of a body. I mean, I've been on searches before where a person's been missing a long, long time, and that those cells, that scent that the canines are trained to pick up on, has actually gotten into the soil and grown up into tree roots, and so they'll hit on a tree. You have to backtrack. So it really depends on the situation. But now, something like this, where we're talking about something that's been out here a month, it's going to be a lot easier. But I have also been on searches where, canine handlers clearly have missed, the signals. I think that happened in the Chris Watts case. I didn't really follow that case too closely, but I heard that was, something that happened there.
We were talking before we started recording just a little bit about the jurisdictional aspects of how this is going to play out, because tomorrow is when both of them are listed, according to online court records, to be in Riverside County, California, in court, but their court people could not confirm or deny whether or not that's actually going to happen. San Bernardino County is the agency that arrested the couple. They have been working the case since Rebecca Haro claimed that she had been assaulted in the parking lot in Yucaipa. How could that come into play? Just with how the area and the jurisdictions and the lines and everything that's kind of playing out with this.
So this is something I've been wondering about, because the way counties run, the I-10, which runs east-west, basically is the border of Riverside and San Bernardino County. So at the Big Five store in Yucaipa, that is in San Bernardino County. However, their home in Cabazon is in Riverside County. Now, if they've determined that was a fake kidnapping and everything really happened at the home or in Riverside County, it would be their jurisdiction. However, the arresting agency was San Bernardino, but they're being held in Riverside. So I don't know, unless they're going to do this as a multi-jurisdictional, or if they're still working out who exactly is going to prosecute this. I'm not sure, but it seems that it's the charges that were filed. It seems were filed by the Riverside County DA's office, but with San Bernardino being the arresting agency. So I'm not 100% sure. It's confusing.
Right. And it's interesting too, and I know we've talked about this, that it was Riverside County that dealt with the case involving Jake Haro in his previous child cruelty case dating back to 2018. So and there's a lot of questions there about how that played out. As far as this case, still even, I mean, I think last night when you saw the images of Jake Haro and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is how this story potentially ends in terms of finding this boy and that they're coming clean on what actually happened. Then you have Rebecca talking to a newspaper reporter from jail, and she's sticking to the story. The fact that you see Jake out with detectives, though they didn't find anything, and then Rebecca still claiming that she was attacked, that the boy was kidnapped. What does that tell you about what's going on inside the jail and how detectives are handling this right now?
Well, they're doing what we had talked about last time. They'd probably be trying to do, which is create a division. I mean, they couldn't be more polar opposite. Literally, she's giving that interview at the same time that Jake is out here in a field with detectives. So he's rolling clearly. You think he's rolling on her, probably not himself. And I picked up the affidavits in support of the arrest warrants from the 2018 case, and he did the same thing in there. The detective actually notes in the probable cause affidavit that came in a couple different times, came into the police station and said, I really couldn't imagine it at the beginning, but now I'm convinced it was, the baby's mother, and trying to lay down the story about how it was not him, it was the mother, and so he's selling her out, and hey, maybe it's true. Who knows? I'm sure it's probably they both had a hand in it, but it seems like the same thing here. Like Jake's trying to save himself. He's smart enough to know that taking them on a false field trip out here isn't going to help him one bit. So I think there's got to be something to this out here.
Right, because that's the thing is like if you're going to lead detectives out there and be like, oh, this is definitely where it happened, and then you don't find anything. And for them, to your point, I mean, they're not out there today. You would think if there was a credible lead that they would at least still be searching, but we haven't had any reports today that they're still looking around there, to at least our understanding. Yeah, it's
Right.
if they're in court tomorrow, it'll be interesting to see what comes out. And then to your point about the kind of the separation of the two, it even goes back to Jake having his own attorney, who I assume is giving him counsel. And then here's Rebecca talking to a local news reporter, still sticking, and they're on completely two different sides. So something
Yeah.
it feels like it's heading that direction. This might be a difficult question to answer, but when you look at I just think of the area I see behind you, Steve, and I think of
Yeah.
Rebecca and Jake Haro. I mean, can someone, even for as vast as the area is, I mean, I don't get the sense that they are avid outdoors people that could handle the
Right.
terrain to be able to even bring, if gosh, they took young Emmanuel and then put him somewhere. Just from what we've seen about them, like, frankly, they just don't appear to be in great shape. And like, so it just seems
Right.
like that limits where the body could actually be.
I think he unfortunately was probably either tossed from the vehicle, because there was like a irrigation, underpass, or they didn't go very far into that. I don't think they drove into the area because that gate, I think, is locked all the time, although it's private property. I get the same impression. I don't think he's going to be far off the road. That's why we didn't see search and rescue or detectives going too far up into those hills. They seem to be looking close to the bridge area.
Yeah, and however this story continues on, it's obviously just an incredibly sad story, and we'll see how all of it plays out. And if they're in court tomorrow, we'll continue to watch for that. Missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher, thank you for taking time to speak with us as you've been searching on your own here in this case. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law&Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.